Hello and welcome back to the channel. In the last couple of years, I've only seen two films that have left me genuinely unable to decide what I made of them at all. Did I like them? Did I hate them? These films left me unable to form a coherent way to describe how I felt about them. One of these was Ad Astra, a sort of space-borne version of the Heart of Darkness story, and I've not revisited it since I saw it for the first time. The other one is An Evening with Beverly Lufflin, a film that I do find myself coming back to. Please do like and subscribe for more of my film rutterings, but now let me try and explain one of the strangest films that I think I've possibly ever seen. Released in 2018, it's a sophomore effort from director and writer Jim Hoskin with a strong cast of comedic talent including Aubrey Plaza, Jermaine Clement, Matt Berry and Craig Robinson. To say it's an odd film is an understatement. A plot synopsis doesn't really describe what the film is, but let's have a go at one before going on to take a closer look at the weird mix of elements at play here. Plaza's Lulu Danger is unhappy in her marriage and having recently lost her job at the coffee shop, fired by her husband, Shane, who manages it. Meanwhile, Shane is frustrated to learn that Lulu's brother has saved more money than he has and is keeping it in a lockbox. Shane conspires with his hapless employees from the coffee shop to steal that lockbox. And after a poorly executed but nonetheless successful heist, Jermaine Clement's Clive overhears Lulu's brother complaining about the theft in a laundry. Clive offers to help get the money back, and so he heads to Lulu and Shane's house to find a small party occurring. And as Clive cases the house, he is invited in by Lulu. As everyone realises that no one knows who Clive is, he pulls a gun attempting to reclaim the lockbox. But as he panics, Lulu takes charge of the situation and leaves with both the lockbox and Clive himself. They head to a local hotel where a figure from Lulu's past, the titular Beverly Lufflin, is due to perform. Clive and Lulu meet Beverly and his close friend and partner Rodney, and over the next few days the four interact with each other, trying to suss out the feelings and connections between them. Meanwhile, Shane searches for Lulu and the money. After a delay of a few days, Beverly performs and various secrets come to the surface. That's probably the most concise summary I can offer, and it is so far from telling the whole story of what the film is. The summary makes it sound like a lot happens, but it's not a plot-heavy film. The theft of the lockbox occurs in the first 10 minutes, and then this element of the story essentially falls out of the film until the finale, aside from occasional short scenes. The focus is very much on the interplay between Lulu, Clive, Beverly and Rodney. This plays out in a series of actually mostly two-handed scenes that pair our various oddballs together. Lulu is desperate to see Beverly but won't explain why as she attempts to decide what her next move is after walking out on her marriage. Clive claims to be a sort of roaming vigilante but appears to have had a very strange and sheltered childhood background that goes against that suggestion. Rodney is clearly more than an assistant to Beverly, and he is wary and jealous of Lulu's focus and attention on Beverly. Meanwhile, Beverly is preparing for a performance of some sort and appears to only communicate in grunts and moans. The dialogues between the four are a fascinating and strange mix of repressed feelings, outbursts and strange stories. Throughout, the line delivery builds an otherworldly off-kilter atmosphere. You can't say that any of the characters feel like real people. The dialogue is certainly not naturalistic, but each of these people begins to grow on you. You want to learn the secret that connects Lulu and Beverly. You feel for Clive as he struggles to express his feelings. Rodney's devotion to Beverly brings a warmth to an otherwise rude character. Once again, that description doesn't do justice to the strangeness of the film. After all, how do you really describe how a scene featuring characters bonding over a story about one's childhood issues with potty training is actually quite endearing? How do you convey how Beverly's grunts are actually pretty emotive? This is a film that I find I can describe endlessly without actually describing it at all. It has elements similar to that of a Wes Anderson film, the oddball characters in a stylized setting. The hotel that the majority of the film is set in is all faded kitsch. I'd also say it has shades of Jin Jarmusch. Parts of it have echoes of things like The Mighty Boosh. There are so many elements here that shouldn't really fit together, and no doubt there are those that will watch it and feel that these things indeed don't mix cohesively. The score also adds to the bizarre feel of the film, alternating between percussive horns that swirl with a menace and electronica that recalls its 1980s period setting. It's a score that adds a feeling of hyper-reality to the mundane scenes that we're being shown throughout, as does the cast of secondary characters. Each one is fantastically quirky and are portrayed by a group of actors that vary wildly in their performances, both in terms of tone and quality. But as I say, I find that the film is growing on me the more times that I watch it. The heart and soul of it emerging a little more each time out from under the postmodern whimsy of it all. The central four characters all have aspects of vulnerability. Each one of them is looking for a purpose in life. Beverly's late on admission that he honestly doesn't know why he previously broke Lulu's heart is a real tender moment of emotional truth, plainly delivered. And it even follows swiftly on from a scene of high farce. Indeed, the film concludes with a dance scene that is as goofy as it is reaffirming for the characters. And if you've even slightly engaged emotionally with those involved on screen, it makes for an uplifting ending. A sign that these people, reeling from the emotional tolls that they've experienced over the last few days, will be alright. They may not have fully found their way, but they are getting there. Throughout this review, I've struggled to adequately describe what it's like to watch the film, and I'm not sure I'll ever be able to really describe it to anybody with just words. It has an atmosphere, a soul that is distinctly its own. And as I've mentioned, the first time I saw it, it mostly left me baffled, unsure about what I made of it, but something drew me back to it. And I think it is the fact that there is something there, a soul to speak of, underneath the artifice of it. Would I recommend it? Well, that's a difficult one. I suspect it's one of those films that falls in the space where you'll either think it's fantastic or terrible. It will make an impression, of that I've no doubt, but it will depend on the individual, the nature of that impression. If you like some of the work of the filmmakers I've mentioned earlier, there's an indication that you may take to it, but I would certainly say it's not a guarantee. When talking about An Evening with Beverly Lufflin, a lyric from a song used on the soundtrack towards the end best encapsulates it. Words don't come easy.